It's been an exhaustive and exhausting political cycle. The amount of media that was bought and consumed by TV viewers and other forms of ad-sponsored content, enough for several lifetimes. And the ads don't seem to change. They seem to be of the same caliber that they were. I've been watching political ads probably since Dukakis or before. And I remember Dukakis had let someone out of prison on a weekend pass, and he killed some people. I don't remember all the details, but I remember Dukakis let this evil man out of prison while he was governor, and this man committed some crimes, and now Dukakis was responsible because he was the other guy. And of course, we all saw this through this and other election cycles, they're the other guys. They're the other people. Though that's not us, that's them. And knowing that this is one of the pressure points that the propagandists use to, let's say, manufacture consent and manufacture, let's say, ideas in your head so you think they're your own. They use particular biases and influences in their marketing.
They're eating the dogs. They're eating the pets.
Well, hey, white dudes. So I think we're all pretty sick of hearing how much we suck.
Attention seniors. Kamala Harris has promised amnesty.
And the one I want to talk about today, the particular bias, is the out-group bias, or sometimes called the in-group bias, or in-out-group bias. And the idea is that if you're in my group, then of course I see you more favorably. I see you as human. I give you the benefit of the doubt. I'm more compassionate. I'm more empathetic. But if you're in the out group, then I see you as more of an object. I don't humanize what you do. I'm more suspicious of your motives. I don't trust your intent. I have a different view on you if I see you as the others or as the out group. And so this bias is used against us through these political cycles. They are used to sort of burn a feeling inside of, who we are, that there might be some type of threat that we need to concern ourselves with. Again, I remember an ad from, I don't know when Dukakis ran, but I was in my teens, that's for sure. So it was 40 years ago approximately. And the reason I remember that ad is because of how it touched me emotionally and affected an evolutionary mechanism inside of myself, right? This bias was created to help me survive. So when we were in small tribes and small bands of people, we needed to make sure that we had a situation that was secure. So of course, mistrust of others and mistrust of the other people, seeing them in a particular way, was to our evolutionary advantage. And this is even sort of been worked out through neuroscience, where they put images of people in your in-group up on a screen and in particular different situations, and maybe some type of pain that they're in, or some kind of challenge that they have, or maybe even some type of moral break that they did. And because these people look like you, or because they're in your in-group, you tend to be, let's say, more compassionate and understanding. But when they give the same actions and the same attributes to people who appear to be in your out group, you will find yourself not being as compassionate, not being as humanizing, not being as forgiving as the people that are in your in group. And they'll see this through the neurology in your brain by the areas that light up. When you're being compassionate, a particular region of your brain lights up, and they can see that this area lights up much more frequently for your in group than it does for your out group. That the part of your brain that, let's say, trusts and is relaxed and open, and oxytocin and dopamine are flowing around. They can see when that's happening, as opposed to when cortisol is kicking around in there with oxytocin and making you stress out. And through being able to sort of offer some type of imagery or stimulation that reflects some type of emotional response, the emotional response from a neurological aspect is different if you perceive that person to be in your in group or your out group. So how do you know if you're being subject, if you're using this bias? Well, first of all, this is why the political season's great. You're able to use this as sort of a mirror to see, what am I really thinking about these people? So whoever the other side is, if you find yourself being less compassionate and more judgmental, harsher with the way that you view them, maybe you could try like just observing that and seeing, is that how you really feel? Or is this based off a lot of assumptions that you've made because this person looked like they were in your out group? And vice versa. Again, when I say, Republican or I say Democrat, those are just labels. They're not people. They're not the human aspect that has a full set of feelings and a full set of emotions and is probably thinking much like you are and subject to the same biases. So if you find yourself being judgmental, or maybe you're not being judgmental, maybe you're being too forgiving, too understanding. These are two different situations that you can observe in yourself and say and do the whole exercise at that moment. So you have a cue. Your cue is when I have hands are to my head. Okay, at this point, do I have a bias going on? And if right now, because the political season is so rich with political experience, there's a good chance that you're going to have a bias going on in that moment. So you can check in with the feeling in your body. You can check in with the feeling and the emotion in your head. You can check into the space to see what's going on. And at the same time, make the observation that maybe the assumptions that you're making are just that, assumptions. I have a rule I've shared before. If I assume it, I ask it. And if I want to get to know someone better, I want to create trust, and I have certain things that I have made prejudgments, I'm going to ask them about them so that we can at least get past all that. And sometimes I see that this is missing in discourse, because in discourse, what we're doing is we're starting to argue, we're starting to defend our point and trying to convince the other guy that they're wrong. The whole time the other guy is trying to convince you, me, whoever, that we're wrong. And in this process of let's say, conflict, mini conflict that's going on, this out-group bias is flaring up. So when you hear political conversations, or you get involved with one, or you get identified with a particular political conversation, just take a look. What in-group bias is being used against you at that particular time? And it's okay if you choose to feel that way. But the idea is to give you the choice not to be subject to people manipulating these biases against you. And the election season is a perfect time to see it. Typically I find when I meet someone, if I ask them enough questions about them, I usually find things that we have in common. And so this is one of the things, if you find yourself sort of being, in-group biases obviously aren't as damaging as out-group biases, because out-group biases could be costing you opportunities to reach the goals that you're trying to reach. They could be costing you opportunities to make friendships that you just never even thought were possible. They could be costing you opportunities that you can't even imagine at this point. And so this is why the out-group biases are the ones that we sort of need to take a look at and sort of dissect. And like I said, if I want to get over an out-group bias, then I start to ask the person lots of questions that represents that bias for me, that represents that out-group. I try to get to know them better. I make myself uncomfortable, and I listen to what they're saying without trying to convince them of anything, not trying to find the flaw in their argument, just listening to them so that I can see if we truly have anything in common or not. Another really great tool for me to overcome my, let's say, out-group bias is travel. The more I travel, the more I see different cultures and experience different viewpoints and listen and have conversations with different people about the way they see the world, the less assumptions I make about how the world works. The less, again, other guys or out-group that I do. I don't see a particular religion as everybody in that religion. I don't see a particular nation as everybody in that nation. Because most of the people that I've met in my travels, they have families. They want their families to do well, whether it be their children or their parents or their brothers or their sisters. They're concerned for the people they love in their life. And so when I start to see that side of them, they share this aspect of who they are with me, then I can understand that because I love my children. I love my parents. I love my family. And so if from no other aspect, I can create an in-group for myself and find a common space to operate with someone through the love that they have for their family. Again, this is a particular bias, and we'll share some more bias in future videos that you're being manipulated and, let's say, subjected to, let's say, thoughts and ideas and opinions that really aren't yours. And so I hope the observations that we shared and the couple techniques I sort of use to be able to broaden my, let's say, view on my in-group and how I can include more people into it, I hope you find useful. Remember, we're all stuck in the matrix. It's your job to find your way out. I hope what we share helps.